Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me. Embossing folders are all the rage right now, which makes me super happy because I've collected them for many years, and I'm really glad to see that they're coming out with all different styles and 3D and things that cut, and they're just so much fun. We're going to do something really fun with this particular embossing folder today. This is called the Angled Mosaic, and it's from Altenew. I've used it many times, not necessarily on YouTube, although I might have, but on my blog. It's one of my all-time favorites ever. Look at how cool that is. This is a 3D embossing folder, and it's just gorgeous. This is just plain white cardstock, and it just looks amazing. But we're not going to use this with cardstock. I had done this technique a couple of years ago during a Facebook Live for Doodle's Paper Playground, where 9 times out of 10 I was making shaker cards. And we were trying to come up with new ways to make shaker cards, how to make them more interesting and different. So what we decided to do was to use acetate. Guys, if you haven't tried this, please give it a go because it is so cool. Wait till you see what we're going to do. I have this acetate here. It's wrapped up in this like saran wrap type stuff because it keeps the dust off of it. This is actually meant for, I'm sorry about that glare. This is actually meant for like food boxes. Like if you're packing cookies and there's like a window on top, you use this plastic. It's like food safe. So it's really thick and durable. And I like to use it for shaker cards. Not all the time. Most of the time I use it for, I use like packaging from stamps and things like that just to recycle. But sometimes I pull this stuff out when I really need it to be heavy duty. And that's what the story is for today. So I cut that piece down, a piece of that acetate. I'm not sure if the source that I had gotten it from is still has the product available. If they do, I'll link it. Otherwise, I'll try to find it from someplace else. But just make sure that you check my description box for the links to all of the products that I'm using today. And if something's no longer available, I will notate it. So I cut a piece of that acetate down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I ran it through my die cut machine with this embossing folder. Are you ready? Are you ready? Check this out. Guys, how cool is this? I am obsessed with this. I've done it with other embossing folders before, and I've done it with thinner acetate, but I tell you, this thick stuff is the schnizzle. I'm telling you, it's so good, and I mean, you can just slap this onto like a cool background and you're done, but we're gonna take it a few steps further and turn it into a shaker card. I love this, and I hope you do too. Okay, so here's what I've got. I have a roll-off print. So I do a lot of mono printing. I don't know if you've seen my mono print Mondays. They're every Monday at noon Eastern time. I put up a YouTube short, so they're only a minute long, of different techniques that you can do with mono printing. And when you mono print, I use my gel press plate. When you mono print, you use a brayer to roll the paint or the ink or whatever medium you're using on the plate around. And then there's always excess. So I use a piece of scrap paper and I roll it off. And this is what you get. You get a roll-off print. And sometimes they're super layered, sometimes they're not. For this, I used a color shift paint from DecoArt. Actually, it's two. It's 2 different colors, and they both shift to this amazing, like, iridescent blue. And I thought that this would be gorgeous underneath here. Look at that. And I don't care that it's kind of grungy and imperfect. It doesn't matter to me. You can use pattern paper if you want. You can keep it solid, but oh, that's so cool with the shine. And then we're going to add to it. So first things first, we need to cut this down and then we're going to start building our shakers. So let me grab my paper trimmer. I've got this baby right here. This is one of my oldest ones. It's from Fiskars, just a rotary trimmer. And I'm going to bring this to about here. And then from there, I'm going to cut this to, I'm actually going to cut it to 4 1/4 as opposed to just 4 because I think that I want it bigger than this so that it will close off the backing. So I'm going to make it 4 1/4. And I know that you can't see the measurements, but trust me, they're there. Here we go. How's that? Is that better? That's better, right? Okay. So we've got 4 1/4. Now we need to trim off the top. Get rid of that and save this. Save this because look at how pretty it is. Oh, love that. 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And now that is going to wind up behind our window. Oh, I love this. Okay. Next up, we need a frame. We need a frame so that we can start building the shaker. So, all right, some of you might think I'm crazy, but some of you might be cheering in the background. We are going to use holographic paper because if we're going to go shiny, we're going to go really, really shiny. So I have 2 old rectangle dies. These are from Elizabeth Craft Designs. These particular ones are no longer available. Guys, I'm sure you have rectangle dies at home. And if you don't have rectangles, use whatever shape you've got. But I'm using rectangles today because I want it to fill up my card front. So I'm going to take this holographic paper. I'm going to die cut the large rectangle. Then I'm going to go in with the smaller one. Typically, if I'm using a rectangle that's a little closer in size to the other one that we're cutting, I would just tape it with washi tape. But I got to be honest, I don't trust myself here. So I think that I'm going to just run it through my die cut machine twice. It'll be off camera. You don't have to watch. And we're going to play with it that way. This is kind of a thick frame that we're making. The size in between these two, I felt were too close. It was going to make too thin of a border, and I wasn't really feeling that. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider. This window will be a little smaller, but you know what? It doesn't matter because it's holographic and it's gorgeous. So I'm going to go off screen and cut these out, and then we'll see what we've got. All right, this is what we've got. I've got my frame, which is mostly centered. It's off by just a hair, but it's fine. It's not enough to make me crazy. I took this piece of the roll-off that we cut and I added it to a piece of cardstock just because it's on copy paper and I wanted it to be a little bit more sturdy. So now what we need to do is we need to attach this to this and then this to this and make our shaker, and then we'll add our sentiments and the fun stuff like that. Okay. To do this, I don't care for using wet glue when I'm attaching acetate to anything. It's just not my favorite thing. I feel like it doesn't really stick very well. And it takes forever to dry. So we're going to use Tear It tape, which is a double-sided adhesive tape from Imagine. I love this stuff. If you haven't used it before, try it out, especially if you like using embossing powders, because you can actually emboss with this. I had done a tutorial on this a while ago, and you can make stripes and plaids and fun stuff like that, and then heat emboss it, and it's so cool. So that's a fun thing that you can do besides just use it as a regular adhesive. So I'm just going around the perimeter here because we're going to attach our acetate to this. Okay. Make sure you burnish it down with your fingers a little bit so that the tape will stick to the cardstock and the release paper will come off easier. Although I've got to say, this release paper comes off, I mean, so nicely. See that? Of course, now it's sticking to the other piece because I didn't lift it up over there, but that's all right. There we go. One more piece. And now we are going to attach our embossed piece of acetate. With this, it doesn't really matter what direction you go. I honestly don't even know which side it's supposed to be because it's a geometric, but we're going to just attach this like so. Whoop, my light fell. Look at that. I mean, that's so cool already. Seriously. Oh, loving it. Okay. Now we need to grab our foam adhesive. I've got from scrapbook.com. What dimension is this? This is 1/4 inch, 3 millimeters thick. So it's going to be a nice fat shaker. You can go thinner if you want to, but I like to have them so that my bits will move around nice and easily. Okay, just cutting off a piece here. The release paper on this comes off really nicely as well. And we're going to go all the way around. You want to make sure, it wasn't as important before when we were adhering our acetate, but for this it is super important to make sure that there are no gaps in your foam. Or if you're using cardstock, you can do that too, but make sure that there are no gaps for the walls of your shaker, because if there are, your bits might fall out, and that's just no good for anybody. Okay. So you want to really make sure that you nudge it up against there. And I also don't like to have it too high up. I like to get it closer to my walls. Of course, I didn't do it here, but closer to the edge, because then our shaker pieces won't fall behind where you can't see them. Okay, and now the last piece, butt that up against there. That's a little off. Hold on. I find it to be a little easier to work with it off the roll, but I don't want to waste any. Okay, and now we're going to just trim this off. And you see how I made it a little fatter there? That's okay. We're going to just push it in, and now we have no gaps. Okay, now we need shaker bits. It's fun to pick out that part. All right, so I'm not sure where you're from, but by me we have what's called Daiso. I'll make sure that I link it below. And it is an Asian store that has all sorts of cool things, like they have Asian style dinnerware, and then they have gardening stuff, and then they have stickers and stationery. They have organizational stuff. It's just a really cool, like, one-stop shop for inexpensive but kind of fun, quirky things. So I have a lot of their organizational things in my studio space. And I just picked this up yesterday. This was like $2. And I know that some people like to have them all organized by color, and typically I love that too, but I don't have the room for it. So this is kind of a jumbled mess, but it's fun to kind of rifle through and figure out what colors you want. So for that, some people might be like, oh, I can't handle the crazy. But this is just sequins, and I don't mind kind of looking through, because I might pick out a color that I wouldn't have picked out if I wasn't kind of shuffling through here. So again, to each his own, but this is working for me. It's cheap, it's small, it has a lid. I'm super happy with it, and that's what I like to use for this. Okay, I am seeing this Rainbow Pearl Twilight, and I am loving that. This is all card bling from A Colorful Life Designs. You can use my code ALFAN10 to save 10% on your purchase of not only the card bling, but also all of the thousands of stencils that they offer. This crystal metallic splash, heck yeah, but we need like a purpley pink. Ooh, this is good. Hold on. This might be the, nope, not that one. This might be the best. Crystal metallic Enchanted. Oh, look at that. That's fun. That's working for me. Okay, so we have our card bling. I don't think that there's anything else that I want to add. Nope. Okay, perfect. And now we're going to add some sequins to our window here. Let's see if I can do this without spilling them all over my desk. And these are pretty flat sequins. They're confetti sequins, so they don't have any holes in them. But if you have shaker pieces that are fatter, they'll totally work in here because we've used that 3mm foam tape. You can also use craft foam. I've used that before too, but I wanted to make my life a little easier and just go with the foam tape today. How are we liking this? Now, usually I put something on the inside, like a sentiment or a stamp design or whatever, but because we have this embossing folder and it's so textural and interesting, I really don't want to do that. So we are, of course, going to add a sentiment, but I don't want to take away from what we've done with the embossing folder. I think that this is good. That's a good amount, right? I think so. Yeah, we're good. So now we're going to peel this away. Maybe. There we go. And we're going to be careful to not have this happen. You see this guy is trying to escape, and now another one is trying to escape. You can use an anti-static powder tool on the walls of the foam tape. I tend to not do that, which I probably should, but it kind of makes me crazy because then the dust is in here and I don't like how that looks. And everything is starting to stick. Okay. One more. And it doesn't matter what orientation we have this panel or this panel because we can flip it around as we like for when we attach it to the card base. Really, guys, can you just stay down here? Thank you. All right. Ready? Deep breath, guys. We're going to make sure that we get this as lined up as possible. We'll trim off any excess that we might have, but I think we're okay. Push this down really well. Flip it over. Oh, we got a little bit of excess here. Hold on, hold on. That's okay. Check that out. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Okay. And this is going to fit right onto our card base like so we don't need to worry about adding anything to the outer edges because there aren't any in this one. So I have pulled out this Yasss from Ellen Hutson Designs. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for Ellen, she has retired. Unfortunately for us, she's retired. There might be a few things left in their Amazon shop, but their regular website has since closed down. I'm going to say this again, use what you've got. If you don't have this, that's okay. I'm sure that you've got something in your stash that you can totally work with, whether it's a die like this or a stamped sentiment and then you cut it out or you trim it out. Whatever you have, you can totally make it work, but I think that that's going to be really fun. So what we need now is some type of paper that is going to coordinate with this. So I'm going to try and locate something. So I love a good houndstooth, and I can't pass it up when I see it, whether it's in paper or clothing or whatever. It's my favorite print ever, or pattern, whichever. This is ridiculously old paper from Karen Foster Designs. I am obsessed with it. I used to carry it in my store, and I have a ton of it, so why not use it for this? So I cut it out, and again, this is just paper, so I cut it out of the paper and a piece of cardstock and glued it together. And I've got my exclamation point right here. Guys, what is the point of the exclamation point called? When you have the dot of the I, that's called a tittle, but what is this dot called? Is that also a tittle? Let me know in the comments if you know, because I'm genuinely curious. Okay, so I love the houndstooth. The colors are perfect, but you know what? It's just not standing out enough. It actually looks a little bit better on camera than it does in person. So how are we going to make this work? This does not have a shadow die, but that's all right because we can use the die to create our shadow. So we're going to move this over. I've got some purple cardstock here. This is also really, really old. Guys, I have so much paper from my old store, and it makes me happy to use it when I can. So what we're going to do is we are going to flip this over to the back. You can see that there's a bit of a texture here. We're going to flip this over, and we are going to take our Yasss, and we're going to, hold on, I worked this out in my head before, not this way, this way. We're going to have the cut side up. And then we're going to take a pencil, and I'm going to just trace around this. And if you don't want to trace around it with a pencil, that's okay. You can kind of, you can tape it down and freehand it. But that might be a little bit too tricky because this is a really big die. So I feel like doing it this way is a little bit easier. Okay, we've got that traced out, and now all I need to do is cut it out. And then when we flip it over, we've got a perfect shadow because this outer edge, obviously, is fatter than our cut line, right? So it's going to just be the perfect size to go around it without encroaching too much on the rest of the card. So I'm going to trim this out of here first. I think that this color was called Wizard. This was from Prism Cardstock. This was my favorite cardstock company to carry. I had, I think, almost their entire collection. And when I had my store, it was a scrapbooking and stamp store. My pride and joy of the whole store was my cardstock wall, because I spent, I want to say, 2 days making sure that I had the most beautiful cardstock rainbow featuring the Prism collections, and then I filled in with other things like Basil and whatever other companies I had at the time. But that wall was absolutely gorgeous, and it just made me so happy, and it made me feel so warm inside every time I looked at it. I goofed it right here. Hold on. It's a little bit of a glare from the pencil lead. There we go. And it was just beautiful. But now it just lives on in my memory and in photos. Okay, so we're just working our way around. And what's nice is we don't have to worry about being absolutely perfect, because our pencil line is on the back, so you're not going to see it. And if it's just a little fatter on one area than another, that's okay too. This is handmade stuff, right? Not machine made. It's okay to be imperfect. Whoever gets this card is going to love it no matter what, right? Or any other card that we make. And that is the important thing. That you make someone's day with a little bit of paper and, let's face it, a lot of time. All right. Check this out, guys. You ready? We have a pretty perfect shadow layer now. Isn't that fun? I love that. I mean, granted, it's easier to have a shadow layer, of course, but if you don't have one, this works out really well. Okay, I'm going to zoom in my camera. We're going to glue this bad boy down and then attach it to our card. And I was trying to figure out what kind of sub-sentiment I wanted. Do I want like a, yes, you did it, yes, it's your birthday? And to be honest, I just don't know. So how do I remedy that? Well, I'm not going to put a sub-sentiment today. I'm going to put one when I decide who this is going to. And that's what the plan is. So we will have a little bit of room for a sub-sentiment, and I'm just not going to utilize it today because I never know when I'm going to need this card or who it's going to be perfect for yet. So I think it's better to wait. So that this way, I don't say, oh man, this would have been perfect for so-and-so, but I already put happy birthday on it, and I'd rather it be a congratulatory card. So I think it's better to wait. I'm just going to get this sucker on here like that. And then the little dot at the bottom, which again, I don't know what it's called. But we're going to use it anyway, because we need it. All right. Oh, and I just moved that. Hold on, folks. Almost there. Scoochy it this way. And then if you need to adjust anything, you know, now that we've got this on here, like this corner is bothering me a little bit. So I'm going to trim that just a bit, because it's not as round as I'd like it. There we go. That's fine. That's just fine. Okay. See how much better that looks? And it's not so fat where it takes away from the background, but it definitely makes it stand out. All right, so we can attach this to this. Now, in this case, I do think I want to use my Territ tape again, because we've got a lot of acetate here and not a whole lot of holographic paper that this is going to sit with. So I am going to grab my Territ tape and then attach it with that. Okay. I think that this is going to work out better. And you really don't need a ton. Like, this is probably excessive. I do want to have it at the end here because it's going to be so close to the edge of the card. So what would you do? Would you put a sub-sentiment now, or would you wait until you have the right occasion to mail off this card or give this card to somebody specific? I feel like sometimes it's better to just leave the sentiment off. I mean, for this, I wanted this die, but sometimes I leave my cards without anything, and I figure it out later. Okay. Now we could really tilt it, but I don't think that I want to do that. I think I want to keep it nice and low. We have room down here for a sub, and I think that that looks good. That's so fun. Okay, now we need to adhere this to our card base, and we are done, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. I love this look. I love how it looks like a cut crystal or cut glass because of this geometric embossing folder that we used. I think it's so fun. All right, ready? Deep breath. This is probably my least favorite part, especially when I do a full panel like this, because if I don't line it up, then we have a problem. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Look at that, guys. We're okay. All right. My friends, I hope you enjoyed this. I definitely did. Look at that, how it catches the light, not just from the sequence, but because of that embossing folder and the holographic paper. This is like a party in a card. I love it. All right, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will be back real soon with another video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave me a comment. Let me know. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd love for you to. I will see you next time. Be well. Stay safe. Peace out.